Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to our best movies of the year so far with the boys Connor.
Hello.
And Benny.
Hi there.
Well folks, as tradition holds, we have to catch up on every 6 months. We like to catch up on all the movies that have been coming out. And hey, we're at the halfway mark through 2019 and hey, it's time for us to see where everyone's sitting on the best of the year so far, the worst of the year so far. So this episode's dedicated to the best, and also head back to the channel to see the worst.
It's a very interesting year, this one. I'm so keen to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I reckon this might be the most distinct lists we've ever had.
Yeah, because in the past there has been a solid amount of overlap, but this year
we mostly just have different kind of numbering, like where we kind of placed things.
Yeah. And then you usually throw in like one that we've never even heard of, let alone seen.
Yeah, the wanky one.
Yeah. Yep. So, hey, this is fun. I'm pumped. We got some beers cracked open. Benny, are you first off the ranks?
Sure.
Oh, wow. We're just, jumping right into it.
Whoa.
I should say this is top 5.
Feels so
we're
aggressive.
gonna count this out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Honourable mentions at the end, and we're just gonna go round by round.
Is it the best way to do this? Probably not, but we're too lazy to change the format, so
No, there's no other way to do it.
And we're gradually going to get drunker as it goes on, so it's not going to get better.
yeah.
I mean,
Number
for you guys, it will.
5.
Number 5. So my first pick this year is an Australian film. Interestingly enough, I don't think I've ever had one on one of these lists before.
They're not common.
Hotel Mumbai.
Wow, Hotel Mumbai.
Hotel Mumbai, directed by Anthony Maris, about the 2008 terrorist attacks on the Taj Hotel in, of course, Mumbai. This was a movie that looked fairly boilerplate. I was not expecting too much going in. It looked very much like one of those real-life drama kind of...
Australia has a history of that. There was that one with Nicole Kidman about the floods that I made it about 3/4 of the way through and just
don't even know. I have a massive blind spot for Nicole Kidman films, to be honest.
Do you really?
Totally.
Yeah, when he sees the poster, it's just pixels.
Except for BMX Bandits.
Wait, when you say blind spot, as in like you like them or as in you hate them? Like what?
Blind spot? Why would that be a good thing?
I don't know. As in like you were just blind to how bad they are?
No. I'm not super up on her filmography, to be honest. So
confused.
Yeah. So going into this, I was expecting a pretty tame kind of drama. And what I got was one of the most tense and intense true stories that I've ever witnessed on screen. It was so close to bordering on full-on exploitation that it was like almost full-on bad taste. But something about it just really gripped me. There were several walkouts in the session I was in, quite a busy session, it was a preview session. And I do not blame people because I think they were going and expecting what I was expecting. And this was not that. I've never seen so many like just full-on like headshots, people getting gunned down. It wasn't gruesome, but it was very confrontational for something that is based on true events that happened just over a decade ago.
Yeah. So I haven't seen this. Have you seen this, George?
No, I haven't.
There's going to be a lot of that with my list, I think.
I figured. So have you seen Hotel Rwanda?
You brought this up last time I brought this up.
I know.
There's nothing alike. They both have hotels in them.
Well, they both are centered around real events. They both feature fairly gruesome events.
You haven't seen Hotel Mumbai.
Well, like I know I know what it is,
and I've seen both. I can tell you they're nothing alike.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
This movie was, like I said, almost in bad taste. It's really, I can't imagine what this would be like for people who were there or people who had family members who died in these events. So I'm definitely not defending it on that level. But like I said, just watching it myself, I found it so gripping and such an interesting take on the subject matter. There was a lot of unexpected humor in it, especially between the terrorists themselves. You spend a lot of time kind of watching them doing what they're doing, and they become characters in their own right. And the way that they're portrayed is very kind of nuanced, and like I said, almost offensive to some people, I'm sure. But such an interesting movie, and it was very cool to see something like that come out of Australia.
Was the action... Because, typically Australian films, it's like a drama or a crime. Like, that's our bread and butter here. And really bad comedies as well. the action in this? Was this feeling like more sophisticated than your run-of-the-mill Australian?
So very well made. I would say it's more of a tension thing than action.
Okay.
The scenes though, when stuff did really break out, were like shocking.
Right.
Again, not gruesome, but just very like in your face. Like it really kind of got you.
Interesting.
Like kind of being there. It was
Wow.
very intense. But yeah, highly recommend that one.
Nice one, man. I've got to check that out.
Cool. Should I go to me then?
Let's go, Connor.
So I've got one that comes out of North America, not Australia. Sorry.
Very niche.
I found, honestly, I found both lists pretty tough, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's been maybe a few movies that have blown me away this year. That goes for both, like blown me away about how bad they are, blown me away with how good they are. But everything else seems to have kind of sat in the middle for me. So, having said that, one of the ones that gripped me at the Sydney Film Festival was called The Wind, which I don't know that I could say that it's not the best movie that I've seen in the last 10 years, nothing like that. But it was such a
best.
Sorry,
It's the fifth best.
fifth best that I've seen this year. Something about it has really kind of is eating away at my brain. Like I really dug that film. I can almost guarantee you it won't make it into my top 5 for the year. But yeah, just something about it. I'm really kind of hedging my bets on this one. I was like, it's good, but it's not that good.
You're completely right, though. It's one of those years so far. It's been very disappointing in a lot of ways. I can happily say that I'm quite passionate about the top 5 movies I managed to pick, but it was a tough list to put together.
Yeah, I think that I've missed it by probably about the top my top 3. I'm definitely happy with. Like those are really solid films. I'd watch them again in a heartbeat. But yeah, the rest are kind of middling areas. So, but anyways, Wind. I thought it was really cool in terms of a low budget, low action kind of thriller suspense style film. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, very kind of classical horror.
Yep.
Really interesting setting that you don't see all that often for a film of that nature.
Yeah.
And just so well executed.
And anyone that has, a fear of open spaces, like really open spaces, so like the sea or the prairies or anything like that.
And the isolation.
Yeah, I reckon this would get you 100% because it has that feeling. There is something because where I'm from in Canada is very much like that. It's just flat, and there is something it's very eerie about being in the middle of kind of like a flat area with no one around you. You feel very alone.
Feel like got eyeballs on you.
You can see
the exact opposite. You feel like
you can see exactly how far no one is.
Exactly, yeah. And it's just you.
There's always like that feeling.
Alone.
It's like, is somebody out there like looking at me from? That's what I always feel.
I think that I was tossing it up between the two kind of horror films that we saw at Sydney Film Festival. One, I like them both, but one I felt kind of overreached for itself.
Daniel Isn't Real.
Cool premise, solid story, but just didn't quite hit the mark as seamlessly as The Wind, because I thought that they executed it really well for exactly what it was. Like the film knew what it was trying to achieve. It did some funky stuff with the story sequences, and I know that some people will be thrown by that, but I really dug it. And yeah, so.
And I hate when people hype this stuff up, but there's at least one like classic jump scare in that movie.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Number 5 for me, The Wind.
Hey.
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. Completely agree with everything you said. Directorial debut from Emma Tammy. Just all around, just really well done. I think I agree with you. Out of the 2 we saw at Sydney Film Festival, this was a lot stronger for me. And I just thought that the brief they set out was very, very well executed. It runs fast. It knows what it's trying to be. I thought the production design, the cinematography, the out of sync time, way the story's portrayed, like everything just really sat with me well. And I loved the soundtrack with the really sort of close in violin sound, like that really eerie, the bowing of the strings.
And they kept the what I noticed in the production for the sound design, and I picked up on this early, and I was really trying to focus in my mind to see whether they'd carry this throughout the film, which they did. Was they constantly had just this kind of just wind in the background, which you get a lot. Like in the prairies. You just get lots of wind. And
Filmmaking.
yeah. And you can just kind of. So I thought it was really cool.
Downloads wind sound.
Yeah, and are we going? Josh?
We're good.
We're good. We're still
Okay.
going.
Oh no!
What the hell's wrong with the audio today, man? Everything's wigging out. We're good.
And for a film that hinges almost entirely on one character, is very gripping. I was
Yeah.
concerned that it might be a bit of a slog.
And I felt like the way they handled the supernatural was very, very restrained, but did enough to like it just worked within the rules that they set up. They could have been like towards the end, they could have really blown it out of proportion. They'd gone to a I don't actually let's not ruin the end. But I just thought they showed a lot of restraint while still having enough supernatural in there to make it freaky and add that X factor from your typical Western. So this was just fantastic.
Yep.
Really, really enjoyed every aspect of it.
Benjamin, number 4.
My number 4 is definitely another one you guys haven't seen. Lords of Chaos, directed by Jonas Ackerlund.
George, I thought you had seen that.
Lords of Chaos.
Lords of Chaos, starring Rory Culkin, about the Norwegian black metal scene.
Because you said you were really interested in that.
I'm really keen to watch that.
There was only
man.
one screening, so
Because you keep
Unless
mentioning
you
how
went there
much
and
of a metalhead you
avoided
are,
me.
and then
I'm such a metalhead, man. Like,
Yeah.
so I should be the first person in the cinema.
well,
Yeah.
So yeah, this director he's actually the former drummer from Bathory, which is an actual Norwegian black metal band. So he kind of knows his shit. He's the right person to direct this. And it was really interesting going to this one-off screening. Everyone there was like full on metalhead. Like I'd never seen any of those people at the cinema before.
So many Anthrax shirts.
Yeah, and I felt like out of place, but in like a fun way. Like this is kind of a cool subculture that I don't really experience too often, except when you take me out because you're such a metalhead.
Oh, I mean, I would have been right at home.
Yeah, definitely. You would have recognized all the people, I'm sure. This movie was one of the most R-rated things I've ever seen in my life. The way that it dealt with both self-harm and the harm of other people, murder, suicide, was so unflinchingly real. It was such a harrowing watch.
So that's all. I've always been super interested with how filmmakers deal with that subject matter, because there's a genuine phenomena where if you report on suicide or if there's suicide in the media, there is a noticeable spike in real world suicides. That stuff fascinates the living shit out of me.
Well, I
And
survived
scares
it,
me.
thank God. But what is also amazing about it is that it's really engagingly entertaining and funny as well. Like it's all kind of narrated by Rory Culkin, the lead, in his just regular, complete American accent that does such a, like all of the main kind of young cast are just Americans pretty much, which completely could be jarring because everyone else is like just full on Scandinavian. But it actually works so well as depicting them as the outsiders that they perceive themselves to be in this situation. And it's just a really very interesting tale of young men who kind of feel they have no purpose, and the things that they can convince each other to do, and the just the depths that this scene kind of went into.
Yeah.
Amazing true story, and just I don't know how like actually factual it is, but I think most of the main beats are there, and it was something I didn't know much about, and just it's so well presented and very interesting.
They were wild, man. Like one of their album covers was depicted the suicide of one of the guitarists, I believe.
Yeah, and they show that in the film.
And like that,
So
I think that was
graphically.
their B-sides album. Was like the dude's head just like spilled all over a bathroom. Like they were fucking gnarly, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would have not picked that as entering anyone's top 5 list when I was looking at the trailers for that. That I figured was going to be here for a second and gone, and no one would give two shits. So it's actually really cool to hear that made a lasting, imprint on you.
Yeah, I very strongly recommend, with the caveat that it is like I said, one of the most intense films I've ever seen. Like, if you're squeamish in any way, or easily put off by those subject matters, then like stay away. But if you're kind of interested, it's such an interesting movie.
Yeah, crazy scene, man.
Hmm.
That black metal scene. Burning churches.
You were
and
there,
shit.
weren't you?
Oh man, Norway, 1991.
Yeah.
18 months old. Connor, number 4. Hit it.
I was there was a second there I was going to switch out my number 4, but I'm going to stick with it.
Classic
Stick to the
Connor.
plan. Don't stop
I'm gonna
fucking
stick
around
with
now.
it. I'm going to put Shazam in my number 4 spot.
Shazam.
I think largely because I just was so surprised that this was good in a lot of ways. Like in my head, it was a kind of cheap way for DC to enter this kind of like the Marvel market where they've got the quirky, funny hero and they're going to try and be a little bit humorous and that kind of thing. And I just, to me, it felt, going into it at least, that this was going to be a cash grab type thing. And that really concerned me. So to walk
Definitely
out of that,
didn't do that.
no, exactly, right. But to walk out of it, having felt like there was some genuine love in there, I think was really cool. Yeah. So I think that this is there largely, as I said, my top 3 I'm really solid on, but number 4 and 5, give me a different day and I'd probably pick something else. But yeah, Shazam I was pleasantly surprised with, which is why I think it got there, just because of my expectation versus reality.
Well, that's a big part of it. It was so interesting to see DC make something pleasantly surprising.
Yeah.
Nothing they had done up to that point could in any world be described as pleasant.
Yeah, Aquaman was not pleasant. It was surprising, but not pleasant.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, bro.
It was not. No, it wasn't. Sorry. What
I
do you
agree. I like Aquaman, but I agree. That movie was
Yeah.
kind of a weird rock and roll adventure film. But Shazam was like really fun and kind of heartfelt and just very cool to see from the Batman v Superman guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like-
thought the camaraderie between the characters was so strong,
Hmm.
and the kids were fantastic in it. Zachary Levi, it was just really, really heartfelt, and ultimately that's what it comes down to. You can have all the spectacle that you want, but if you're not feeling something, and I definitely felt a lot of this. And towards the end, some stuff that happens in here that is not in the trailers, and it was totally unexpected, and it was wildly fun, and it made the third act where. Typically in the third act, you like know exactly how it's going to go. You've seen a few clips from the trailer. The movie's rolled around to that point. And you're like, okay, like we're kind of go through the formalities. I felt with this one, like it really kind of like, oh, that was, wow, cool. This is great. Let's keep going. Like keep surprising me.
That was probably the most impressive thing to me, that it surprised not only people who had little knowledge of the subject matter, but someone like me who's a big fan of Shazam, formerly Captain Marvel. It's really surprised me that they actually went there, and I had no idea they were going to. So that was really impressive.
Nice. Number 4 for me is Us. Jordan Peele's Us.
I was thinking Up. I'm like, that was a while ago, George.
That was 2008, sir. Sir? This was very, very hyped up. Loved
Get Out.
loved Get Out all those years ago, 2017. And was highly anticipating this. And there was a lot riding on this because it was sort of like, is he just going to rinse and repeat the same thing he did in Get Out?
Was it like a fluke? Was it a one-off?
Is he going to completely change direction and do something else that's like, I don't know if this is the same thing, or was he just going to completely bomb it? And I can thankfully say for me, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I liked the ambiguity in the film. I liked it didn't lay everything out nicely in a neat little package, and it's just one of those films from this year that's really stuck with me, like iconic imagery, iconic performances, very unique. Soundtrack. I mean, it's just a really, really, really great horror film. And a lot of my top 5 is horror or like kind of darker themed, with The Wind and this in 5 and 4 positions. So
that tracks for you pretty well.
yeah,
The biggest
me being the metal guy.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. You're such a dark soul. The main influence that this had on me was the remix of the song. I Got 5 on it.
Oh man,
that I've been listening to that song.
Yeah.
I was listening around the time of release to that song, just on loop 17 times.
Downloads
everywhere I
Apple
went.
Music,
Yeah. So I kind of hate to say that because it means the film itself didn't really land with me as hard as I would have liked. Honestly, kind of a similar initial reaction that I had to Get Out, which was so hyped up for so long because we got it quite late here.
It's hard to live up to that.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And this was doing it in a different way, living up to a prior film from a filmmaker that had been so hyped up after that film that I I really, really enjoyed it, but I just never really considered it for a place on my list this time.
Interesting. Because when we came out of it, you were quite into it.
Yes, and I really stand by everything I said, but I don't know, it just didn't sit with me for too long. There were a lot of people were very divided on it. There were a lot of concerns about logistics and yada, 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 which didn't bother me at all, but certainly when a movie has that many kind of things that people kind of pick at, then it just kind of fades away.
I think Get Out was a far more, like, I guess you could say believable film. Like, neither of them are believable per se, but like
Grounded.
Yeah, it felt like the mechanics worked out a lot better. This one,
it's a lot less abstract.
Felt a little bit, yeah, exactly. It felt a little bit more far fetched. It felt like the message he was trying to give us was a bit more kind of on the nose.
Yeah, and also convoluted at the same time. Like, there's a lot of stuff he threw in there that I don't know. I guess I don't know if he's explained it yet, but not exactly sure what he was going for. It maybe not exactly as finely tuned as Get Out was.
The main thing that people got out of it was that if Get Out was the whole point of it was, latent racism or kind of low-level racism.
Post-racism.
Yeah. This one was very much about classism.
Classism is bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill.
I just love this, and there's so many scenes in here that really
totally
stick
agree.
with me. I think in terms of like the cinema package, visual storytelling, sound design, performances, like this is just a really, really strong package. So love a strong package.
Beautiful.
Glad you said it so I didn't have to. My number 3 is, I'm apologize to our American listeners. This is a film that came out for you guys last year, but we only got it this Feb, is If Beale Street Could Talk, directed by Barry Jenkins. He directed my absolute favorite film of 2016, Moonlight, which is a movie that I saw well before release that absolutely blew me away. I knew nothing about going in, which is always the best way to see stuff. We say again and again. So there was a lot of expectation going into this one. The trailers were like sublime. And I will admit that my first viewing of it, I wasn't in the best cinema situation, and it certainly didn't blow me away the way that Moonlight did, but my God, did it stick with me for weeks afterwards. I could not stop thinking about this movie. It's basically, if you don't know it, it's just based on a book. It's about, in the 70s, I believe, a very young couple, 19, 20 years old, black American. The guy gets accused of rape and gets arrested, and it's just basically examining the issues of class and race that come with that. And it's just one of the most human feeling films I've ever seen in my life, and easily the best score that I've heard all year. I can't believe it did not win the Oscar. One of the very few, honestly, it's Odd Bedfellows. It's just this and X-Men Dark Phoenix are the only two scores in the last year that I've really listened to a lot, like just kind of walking around.
To be honest, I've probably listened to more scores this year than I have pretty much any year, because you've got Us that I listen to a lot, got Dark Phoenix that I listen to a lot,
Godzilla.
Got Godzilla that I listen to a lot. I mean, there are some pretty damn good scores coming out.
Better than the movies. That's for damn sure. Yeah. So yeah, this movie was just a really interesting one of those ones that stays with you. Those are so rare and so beautiful. Like we were just talking about Us, how I had like an intensely positive reaction to that immediately, but it didn't really stay with me too long. And this one, I still find myself thinking about, and especially when I'm listening to the music, the imagery. You've watched Moonlight. You did that recently. You know that what the Barry Jenkins has, that kind of dreamy, out of focus look. It's amazing. He is the realest of deals. This guy.
Yeah, he knows how to bring characters to life. He knows how to cast the right people. And Moonlight just really was so beautiful and touching and brutal, and like it just had so many layers to it. I was so impressed. So
yeah, and
this one's been on my list all year, but I just haven't had time.
This hits all of those too, and it's really not like beating you over the head at any point. Like I said, it's one of those ones that just kind of worms its way in eventually. And such a testament to his skill is the supporting cast of this movie. It's really amazing because the leads are all fairly unknown actors, but then every other scene you will get someone like Dave Franco or Diego Luna just showing up for one scene. It's so funny. It's like, hey,
do you find that distracting though?
It's definitely like,
because that's the main idea behind a cameo, which is to like hey, isn't it funny that someone that is really recognizable is showing up in a very small role? It brings you out of it because you're like, oh, that's, Edward Norton as, a yada yada, or that's, Leonardo DiCaprio. Like, they shouldn't be there.
In all fairness, he was amazing as yada yada.
Yeah.
So good. I'm so glad he didn't stick with that Hulk role. Yes, I completely agree with what you're saying. And it did, every time it would happen, I'd be like, hey, it's that guy. But I don't know. It was a really, really positive thing for me because as much as I love Barry Jenkins, I was like, it's so cool that these people are just like, I'll do anything for you.
Yeah.
Like, just let me in for whatever. So yeah, that was the most beautiful film I've seen in a long time.
Cool.
Yeah, nice, man.
So we're on to number 3, aren't we?
Number 3.
For the best. On number 3, I have John Wick.
Number 3.
Wick.
This, for me, I actually ended up seeing it twice,
Mm.
just through circumstance. Honestly, I think for action films, the defining aspect of those films is the action, right? And I felt like this was by far one of the best choreographed action films that I've seen in the last couple years.
Decade, easily.
And I'm a huge fan of inventive choreography when it comes to action films. I love, martial arts films. Especially growing up, I was a real big fan of those. For years, I maintain that Ip Man 1 has one of the coolest and most just beautifully choreographed fight scenes of all time. And so I'm always really interested when an action film puts time and effort into doing something that feels new, that doesn't feel like it's every other action film ever. And I think that John Wick did enough to make me it made me turn my head. I was like, oh, that's really cool. That knife scene is
so
just
good.
it's such a cool usage of different forms of effectively forms of violence.
Even earlier than that, this movie makes you sit up and pay attention from the very first fight scene involving a book that even if you have not seen the film, you have heard of.
Savage.
Yeah.
That does not let up throughout. I think movies have become so complacent through the kind of blockbuster stuff, like even the Marvel movies. I don't think you don't really ever come out of one of these superhero movies being like, that was amazing action. Like that was so.
The Russo brothers brought a bit of a flair to it, but never
Civil War and Winter Soldier. You get a little bit, but that's because the John Wick guys I think were involved in that. Some of the stunt coordinators, But then this movie comes along, which I think is easily the best martial arts film ever to come out of the West.
Ooh.
In terms of just the pure choreography.
Pure action and choreography.
Yeah.
You might be right about you've caught me off guard. I'm trying to think.
What else could there be?
Oh God, this is really going to bother me now. 'Cause there's something I'm obviously
I need
not
to
thinking
prove him
of.
wrong.
Yeah, no. It's just such a bold claim.
I'm supporting your pick.
I know. It's just such a bold claim that I'm like, I don't want to agree, but I don't want to
Must react.
disagree. Yeah, fuck it, why not? I'll be on my. I won't think of something to counter that until I'm on my way home tonight. Just like, shit. Yeah, no. So I really loved what they did with the action. I'm always on board with this kind of world building that John Wick does. And Keanu's is forever likable, but for me, it was just they were kind of pushing the envelope with the kind of action that they were doing. I was very much okay with that.
Yeah, no, this was really great. I just wish for this one they'd maintained that pedigree that they had in the first 20 minutes. So I think it dipped quite a lot. And the first 20 minutes, I was like, holy moly, this is, you've got me, man.
In terms of firing on all cylinders.
In terms of firing on all cylinders.
Because I think the action definitely held up.
Yeah,
the only
It
time
got a bit repetitive.
the only time that I would say that the action didn't hold up was, and it was still cool. It was the dog scene, which was a very cool scene. To me, that was an issue of pacing because they just let it go a little bit too long.
Yeah, and they were like, what did we get that comment from Drew Torres, our OG fan? I'm so sick of the dudes getting bitten in the nuts by those dogs. Like at least 6 dudes get bitten in the nuts by the dogs.
I mean, to be fair, that's you train them to go for vulnerable areas. Like that's
Got
how
an
it
expert
would
on
work.
the subject.
That's we're into
My dog-
a tangent.
never mind.
Never mind. Just never walk into my yard.
Podcast on
When a sign says "Beware the dog,"
That's all you need
beware
to know,
the dog.
Ben. Next podcast, Ben's just gonna have a big cast around his nut area.
Excuse me, God.
Yeah.
Did they
So
make it
get
through
I think
used
that's
to
all
that
we
mic?
really need to talk
Did they
about on
make it
that.
through the mic? Apologies.
But yeah,
folks
look,
at home.
I think that the action was pretty high pedigree the entire thing. Though that final scene with the two, I think they're are they Filipino?
Guys from the raid.
Yeah, the Indo guys.
Indonesian, yeah.
Killer.
I fucking loved that. So cool. So yeah.
Yeah, I found myself getting a bit irritated towards the end there, but anyway, that's my old sad self.
This one is definitely on my short list. I feel like the storytelling isn't as tight as the first film, which even that one I feel like peters out a lot towards the end. If they could pair it with something as engaging as honestly either of the Raid films, then it would be like an all-time classic. But I still really love what they're doing, and that was such an enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me is Parasite from Sydney Film Festival, Bong Joon-ho's.
That's
Just
fair.
an incredible film.
How do you even describe it?
Yeah, I mean, like, really the main sentiment I put forward here is that us doing the weekly show, you know, we watch basically a high volume of trailers. We're covering a lot of news. Like, we're very, very scrubbed up on, you know, trailer 4 comes out. We've watched all the previous trailers, you know. What was really refreshing about this one was like, hadn't seen a trailer, knew very little about it other than the credentials of the director, who's one of my favorites. And I was like, I'm really keen to just kind of let a film play out in front of me.
Have you seen much of his catalog?
Yeah, I've seen The Host, seen Snowpiercer, seen Okja, seen Memories of Murder. So I've seen like...
Okay. I've only seen the two. I've seen Snowpiercer and Babe 4.
Babe 4.
Oh, I mean Okja.
Yeah,
Okja.
yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
So yeah, I mean, like, this is just one, like, going blind, don't watch anything on this, don't know anything, because I was just watching this kind of thing unfold in front of my eyes, and I was kind of getting whisked along with this story that really, really was unbelievably impressive, and
like all of his films, completely unpredictable. Like you not only don't know where it's going to go, you really have the sense that it could go anywhere, and it does. You know,
It's a massive shame. Like, because what you mentioned there is like we were watching trailers every week. We're really up to date on that. It's a massive shame that we don't often get to experience that, because there is nothing better than walking into a film, at least for me, walking into a film that I have no idea how it, you know, let alone how it ends, like how it begins.
yeah.
Right? Like, you know, what is it really about, or anything like that. So I absolutely love that experience, and we don't get it very often.
And the way this one begins, and it's kind of inviting you into the story, I was kind of like, wow, this is... I remember taking a moment to say to myself, like, wow, okay, this is different. This is... I'm not used
Special.
to this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not used to not knowing what's going to happen. I'm not used to the genre changing in a film. I'm not used to the tone evolving and going here, there, and everywhere. You know, it's not your typical Hollywood film. It's something completely different.
totally. Yeah. Once this movie starts taking shape, once you see what it's doing, and especially where the title comes from,
And it takes about 20 minutes to get there, I would say.
Yeah. And once it starts doing that, it is so enjoyable. It's such a fun ride. And then once it's really set into place and starts branching out in just the strangest directions that you never expect, it's just so gripping. It is so much fun. The only reason I didn't put this on my list is because I knew you would put it on. I wanted to highlight some other movies.
Yeah.
Because it could have easily slipped into almost any spot.
Cheeky.
Yep. So
Well, speaking of-
I cannot wait to see this again. The
Yes.
only thing I'll say, the
Uh-oh.
only final thing I'll say
Fucking hell.
is I am not one of those people that doesn't like some people will go, oh, it's subtitled, I'm not going to watch it. I'm not one of those people. But sometimes I feel like, man, I wish I could just watch this in the native language and understand it, so I can take in the visuals more.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. Like, I'm not even talking about a dub, because I think a dub does not work. I'd rather watch the subtitled version.
Yeah. So you're only criticizing your own ignorance.
Exactly.
I completely understand. So many people are very quick to say, like, oh, watch the subtitles, the superior version. I'm like, obviously watching it in the original form is best, but there is something to be said for being able to watch a movie and concentrate on all of the nuances on screen. It's a visual medium. When you're watching people act, you want to watch every expression that is coming out of their face. When you have to constantly be reading at the bottom of the screen, there's a lot of dialogue in this movie.
It makes a huge difference,
shame.
and the biggest difference that I've noticed is because my girlfriend usually watches things with subtitles.
I'll do it.
Because it, you know, particularly like English accents. She can't pick up on all the words. Like that has forced me to watch and rewatch a lot of films with subtitles, and it's really cool rewatching a film that you've taken in natively the first time, because you pick up on things that you might have missed because you were just focusing on the visuals and maybe not as much to the dialogue or whatever it may be. But for things that you're watching the first time around, you do sometimes, like I catch myself reading the subtitles
stop.
in an English film that I can understand the English perfectly, but there I am reading the titles and I miss some of the visuals, and you kind of realize how much like your brain just can't really quite do both at the same time, and you inevitably miss things up on the screen.
I much prefer, and I do this, just watching movies without subtitles and honestly missing some of the dialogue, because some sound mixing, sometimes you miss stuff in these movies. That being said, though, that's a good point. I think my fourth viewing of Infinity War in the cinema did have subtitles. It was an open caption session, and it was really interesting to watch a movie that I knew really well at that point, watching it, 3 times prior in very short succession and catching up on some of the dialogue that is just inaudible, essentially. Anyway, number 2.
Dun, dun, dun.
My number 2 is one that may surprise you. It is Dexter Fletcher's Rocket Man.
You've seen that?
I went to see
Dexter
Rocket Man.
Fletcher's Rocket Man. Can you please get off the
Rocket
podcast,
Man.
man?
No, I'm really excited for this, honestly, because a lot of people have shit on this, and
I intentionally did not bring this up in the What We've Been Watching segment of the pod, because I knew the moment I saw it that I absolutely loved it, and I couldn't wait to bring it up in this episode. I only saw it a couple of weeks ago. I moved it today from number 3 to number 2, actually, because this movie just absolutely shocked me. This is one of the...
For a biopic, that's amazing.
That's the thing.
And
this
Dexter
movie,
Fletcher, who did Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well, he
half did it after Singer.
Took less than half, definitely less than half. He came in and he just kind of brought it into cinemas, really.
And he rode the wave, and he made Rocket Man and all the other ones.
So this movie is absolutely not a biopic. It is a musical. It is a hard on its sleeve musical. It does not care about the facts of Elton John's life. It cares about the character Elton John that they are creating on screen, that Taron Egerton is portraying.
Although, from my understanding, it was pretty accurate to his life.
I don't know one way or the other.
Yeah, and I do know that when I think it was either the studio or someone on the team said that we wanted to kind of go for a more PG thing. Elton himself was like, my life wasn't fucking PG. So
yes, and that's he definitely made sure that wasn't the case. So I believe he was very closely involved with the production, which should spell disaster for something like this. Like you'd expect this kind of big ego project, but no, like I don't know one way or the other if it's like, I feel like maybe the dot points could be factually fine, no doubt. But the way that it's presented is so fantastical and has nothing to do with how a real life operates. That's the main problem with biopics. You can't cram someone's actual life story into a 3-act structure that's dramatic and satisfying.
Yeah, if you think about most movies, they deal with a very like small section of someone's life. Like it's maybe the period of a year. Sometimes more often the period of a couple of days. Like that's the subject matter of a movie. If you want to cram, 60 years, 20 years into a fucking film. Some movies start with like little baby fucking Elton, and you're like, oh fucking hell.
That's what I thought was such a shame about that Steve Jobs one that Fassbender did a few years ago, because it was like 3 moments across 3 different product launches or something. It wasn't like, we're going to tell you the whole story. We're going to throw you these little 3 snapshots. And I like the sentiment behind it's just the delivery didn't quite work. But this definitely worked for you, it seems.
Yes, yeah. I generally more often than not seem to be an absolute pushover when it comes to musicals. I'm so skeptical of them, and every time I watch one, I'm like, that was brilliant, that was amazing. Encore. And this was absolutely the same. The musical productions, the actual songs themselves were so well executed.
Yeah.
Taron Egerton I remember watching him for the first time in Kingsman and being like, this guy is a fucking star. Watching him in this movie, he is easily my pick for Best Actor. Everything that people said about Bohemian Rhapsody and Rami Malek in particular, I'm thinking about this movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, everything is so well executed.
Cool.
And it is such an amazing parable about how destructive self-pity is. His whole life is so troubled, and by the end, he really goes through this journey, this arc of realizing that, yes, he had a lot of hardships growing up, and there was a lot of other people who did him so wrong.
Yeah.
But his issues all stemmed from how he thought about himself and his life. It was an amazing journey, an amazing character, and you so rarely see that in biopics that feel really have to adhere to people's actual lives.
The movie is defined by their actions, and they
don't make characters.
They put them on a pedestal.
They just put these facts out there. And what this movie did was craft an actual amazing character, and it blew me away.
How good.
Wow.
I'm actually really thrilled to hear that.
I'm impressed, man.
Okay.
Loved it to death.
Cool.
My number 2 is one that's already been mentioned. It is Us. Oddly enough, I spent most of my time criticizing it when you talked about it.
I'm very surprised by your very solid top 3 that includes Us.
But I do. I think, like, for me, one of the things that when I think
you son
about
of a bitch, you gave us so much grief about this movie.
I know, right?
You like it more than both of us.
But having said that, I honestly, when I think about moments in the last 6 months that have really stood out to me in film, the last 15 minutes minus the last minute of Us is a front runner for that. I think the final, I guess you could call it almost like fight scene, I suppose. The dance, yeah, is like haunting in terms of.
I can hear it. I've been hearing it since George brought it up.
Yep.
Unique, iconic.
Yeah, and that is the example of a scene. Like, I mean, this. All right, everything aside, I think Us deserves a top spot just because of that scene alone. I mean, and they did a lot of other things right, but if you just look at that scene, it is the perfect mixture of, you know, storytelling, of music, of sound effects, of choreography, visuals, cinematography. Like, I mean, this is something that is firing just on all pistons. And
not to mention the visual effects that go into it that are so easy to not acknowledge because it's so seamless. The fact that it's 2 Lupita Nyong'os, it's crazy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, it's flawless.
Yeah, so I think that is, I can't praise that one scene enough. But as a whole, I think that this movie is good enough on enough levels that I don't see how it wouldn't deserve a top 5 spot. Like, for all of the faults that I mentioned before about it being a little bit convoluted, a little bit fanciful, and very allegorical or kind of metaphorical maybe, which are all valid criticisms of this.
Definitely.
I just think the things that it does correctly, like the humor, the creepiness, the cinematography, the music, it can't not be a top 5.
I'm just thinking about that scene in the lounge with the doubles. Lupita Nyong'o's, like, the look she gives. I mean, that's like...
That movie never gets better than that.
That is incredible.
And, yeah, she would be my pick for Best Actress if we were judging
easily.
that now.
Yep.
I'm going to make a supercut of your opinions of that film from the review to your opinions of that film.
Yeah. I mean, and this is like...
shit. Number 3.
Yeah.
Number 2, sorry.
So much of... I mean, it's completely legitimate. Like, so much of how we review something is dependent on, for example, how we felt going into it, what our movie-going experience was like. I'm sure there are even reviews where other people's opinions of the film have affected how we feel about the film.
Do you feel like your opinion has evolved since your initial thoughts? Have you seen it again?
Obviously, yeah.
Have you
No,
watched
I haven't
it more
seen
than
it
once?
again. I haven't.
Yeah.
But
that's good. Well, that's the mark of a great film. That's like what I was saying about Beale Street.
It's something that sticks with you
you
and
think
kind of
about again. Like,
grows on you. Yeah.
How rarely do we see movies nowadays that you think about again?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is I'll mention it or go into it in more detail, but in my special mentions. But actually, I'll talk about it in special mentions.
Nice. Numero 2 for me, Endgame. Avengers Endgame.
Fuck you.
Yeah, man, like, just such a killer movie. We were hyping this up for so long. Could have been a fucking train wreck after Infinity War was so strong. Everything was against it, Everything was for it in that the track record for Marvel was so strong, but then the House of Cards all topple. And it didn't. And I I love Endgame. I only saw it 3 times versus 5 for Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
So something interesting there. But like, I mean, this was just very different from an Infinity War.
Very.
And love the direction they went with Thor. Love the direction they went with Hulk. Love what they did with Thanos. This was just unbelievably, just a killer comic book movie. And
I have nothing to say to you.
3 hours of fucking
I think
awesomeness.
it's just disastrous that you put this at number 2. Anyways,
What,
go ahead, Ben.
Alrighty.
Your number 1 pick.
The number 1 pick.
The right number 1 pick, if you would.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Everyone strap in. My number 1 pick
not.
is Shazam.
Fuck you!
This is the most joyous
Actually, I should have seen
experience.
this coming. Of course, it was gonna it had to be in the top 5. I don't know why.
This is the most joyous experience I have had in the cinema for a very long time.
Nice.
I mentioned earlier that this is my favorite comic book character, and I also, at the same time, thought it was one of the most impossible to adapt. There is something so rooted in the era that character was created, such a gee golly sincerity to him, that I was like, no modern film, especially from Warner Brothers, could possibly capture that. And here comes this movie that is so wears its heart on his sleeve, is so focused on family and this beautiful little orphan unit. I have not had a more emotional experience in a superhero film since I can't remember when, honestly.
How many times did you see this?
I only saw it twice in cinemas, and both times were absolutely fantastic. One of them I think I was very drunk for. I just...
I think it's the one that we saw together, actually.
Yes, yeah. It was twice in one day, I think. Every
That's right, because... Okay, yeah.
And then we went to see Pet Sematary.
Yes,
right?
yeah. That's the next on my list. Number 0 on my list. Just every element of this film worked so well for me. I have honestly loved David F. Sandberg since Annabelle Creation, which I thought is one of the best horror movies I've ever watched. Just in terms of like pure roller coaster ride, nerve-shattering fun, and just really good character work, especially with the child actors. And I feel like that carried over here so well.
100%.
And like I was saying earlier about the finale, just completely unexpected. I had no idea it was coming, and it was so gratifying for me to see this stuff that I love just happening on screen. It is honestly, I got the feeling from this movie that people kind of typically associate with the MCU, which I have often gotten from the MCU, but not as much lately.
Peters out.
So yeah, this really was kind of the most surprising, engaging, exciting time I've had in a movie for a long time.
You know what gets me so excited about that, man, is like, I don't know any other motherfucker out there who knows anything about Captain Marvel / Shazam.
Yeah.
And for you to be that much of a diehard fan, or like really into that character, and for the film to deliver,
Yeah.
that is really, really a seal of approval.
That's a
for
good
me.
feeling, and that's very rare.
Very
I
rare,
find,
man.
yeah.
Very, very rare.
I mean, that you often find someone that's really devoted to a particularly comic book character, but any kind of IP. It's such a 50-50, like,
Yeah.
you'll either hate it or you'll love it.
Mm.
And it's kind of one of those things where you're like...
yeah.
But
Nice, man.
Also, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that Endgame isn't in your top 5. That's silly.
We can talk about this when you bring it up very shortly.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
sure.
number 1, Endgame. I mean, I
Marvel shill.
Yeah, I just don't understand how it wouldn't be in at least your top 5, at least.
Wasn't it my
number one
short
spot.
list?
Well, I mean, contrarian.
No,
yeah.
Honestly,
Ooh,
it would
blockbuster film.
absolutely be on my short list. I just didn't put it there because why? Like, we're going to talk about it, obviously.
MIB hurt you, didn't it?
Yes.
It really hurt you.
Yeah, very badly. We'll talk about that later.
Wait, what? I mean, for me, that it has so much in terms of it should have been possible. It's done things that no other movie has ever really done, in terms of its scale. It's kind of like its budget. It's just what it is trying to bring a close to. I think that it had impossible expectations, and for it to perform so well. And I don't mean monetarily. I just mean in terms of an actual functional film. I think that I have very similar sentiments that I had with Infinity War, which is that I think a lot of people wouldn't put it in their own top list just because it seems like too obvious the choice. Like it's just, it did really well.
Is that how you justified putting the biggest movie in the world at your number one?
Well, of course, but that's the thing. Like,
other people wouldn't do it. Only I have the courage.
No. No, it's the exact opposite. Because it just makes me sound like, oh yeah, it's the biggest film, so I'll put it in my number one. It doesn't sound all that nuanced to put the biggest blockbuster film of this year as your number one pick in terms of quality of film. But I just think that there's every reason why this movie shouldn't have been as good as it was, and the fact that it was as good as it was, it blows my mind.
And it wasn't Infinity War 2. That was the cool part.
Exactly, right?
It was different. It had a different kind of pacing to it, different mechanics.
They definitely justified the name change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously, very much like you can see how they were filmed together. Like they belong together, but it's not just a longer version of Infinity War. It has its own flavor to it, which again, I think is another thing that is just really cool on the direction side from the Russo brothers, that there's this obvious tone change from Infinity War. Like even just if when entering the film, you get this very much of a different kind of vibe. Yeah. So I think I honestly think
it's an incredible movie.
Crazy not to have that as number one.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It's an unprecedented production, and yes, good luck finding two movies that were shot as one production that are so tonally different. It's really a fascinating direction they took with it. I guess if I have to justify my not putting on the list, which it seems like I do.
You do, yeah. So we're clear, you do.
It just... fuck, man. I don't know. I watched it 3 times like you did, Georgie. I watched Infinity War 6 times. Everything you're saying about Endgame, I felt with Infinity War. That was the absolute zenith for me.
Yeah.
That movie blew me away in every single aspect. Every time I watch it again, I'm like, this movie is goddamn perfect. So definitely a hard act to follow. And I wasn't disappointed by Endgame at all. I was very satisfied. I don't think my expectations were too high for it for whatever reason. I feel like I was so happy with Infinity War that I was just kind of like, I can ride the rest of this out. Whatever it is, it's fine. And yeah, Infinity War, Endgame, sorry, just feels... There was just a little too much of a wank, honestly. It was a little too celebratory. It was a little...
If there's any legitimate criticism of that movie, it is that it loves itself maybe a little bit too much.
It was almost universe breaking for me, honestly. As a huge MCU fan, someone who's watched these movies countless times, there was a lot of... I feel like the story went in directions that felt very, this is what the people want to see, rather than this is how the story would evolve. Infinity War was very much like, this is how this would pan out. And that's why it blew me away so much. It was not super fan servicey, whereas Endgame very much was. And then, I hate to bring this stuff up, but like logistically, as a time travel movie, I think it holds together less well than the average time travel movie, 100%. Which generally don't hold together great. Like, you can absolutely justify everything that happens in it, but you have to do some homework. You have to do some outside research. And I don't think internally that it is... It's not perfectly consistent.
No, it isn't. It definitely isn't.
It's not a huge problem, but I honestly think that the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did time travel so much better. So... like I said, it wasn't disappointing, but it was not a really amazing experience that kind of blew me away like Infinity War did.
Do you reckon there was part of it that was like you saw those 3 screenings within 17 hours? Do you think there was something there that
broke you?
Like I know when I saw Inception 5 times in the cinema, by the 4th or 5th time, I'm dragging mom and dad there. Like
that's a hard ass.
All right, son, we'll go see a fucking little sci-fi movie. And I was like, I'm getting fatigued here.
I don't think it's an invalid point. I think there could be something to that. I don't think I'm that kind of film viewer. Like I said, I watched Infinity War 6 times.
By the sixth time, we all had the same. Which was like, this is too much.
I just wanted to be included. I could have watched it again. I watched Civil War 6 times as well.
But 6 times over the space of 2 months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a difference.
So I would be very keen to watch it again in the cinema. We just found out recently the re-release is coming to Australia.
Oh.
I think it's going on Hoyts or some shit. But I would absolutely happily watch it again. But I really don't think my opinion would change too much. I've thought about the movie so much. And
So here's my question.
I'm happy with it.
I can't even remember the name of it. The metal movie, the Norwegian metal movie.
Oh, Lords of Chaos.
Yeah. Do you think that you'll revisit Endgame fondly in 5 or 10 years?
I'll revisit it when it hits streaming this year.
No, but I mean specifically
Eventually.
in 5 to 10 years.
I don't know. I got a weird relationship with the MCU right now.
And if you were to revisit, do you think you'll revisit the Lords of Chaos in 5 to 10 years?
I feel
Not
like
that that's a perfect measure.
I feel like you're measuring it by your own criteria. I don't really do
Yeah.
rewatching movies at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
Right now, there's so much shit out there. I love watching new movies, and that's
Yeah.
kind of all I want to watch.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So I'd absolutely watch an MCU movie again before I'd watch pretty much any other standalone movie because those are just about the only things I rewatch.
Yeah. So it's an unfair way to measure it for you then.
Yeah, and also Lords of Chaos was not a rewatchable movie. That was very intense. I don't know if I need to see some of that shit again.
yeah.
I didn't mention that movie has some intense jump scares in it, which
Really?
you do not expect in like a real life story.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean, fair enough.
So this was my number one. Endgame was my number one up until a couple weeks ago. And last year in the top 10, I decided to put in Haunting of Hill House, which is a little against the criteria because this is movies. And that was a mini series.
All right.
Yeah.
And this year, HBO's Chernobyl, 5 episodes. It's almost like a movie in of itself. So that's why I justified it. It's not an ongoing series. It's a one-off. So I'm justifying putting it in here. And this was just incredible on so many levels. Every facet of this production was on point. I want to watch this again. It's just brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant.
Do you think part of that's the immediacy? Because
Definitely
you've
not.
just finished Chernobyl
About 3 weeks ago.
and Endgame was like 2 months ago.
No, it's definitely, for me, it's a stronger piece than Endgame because I can't fault Chernobyl. I can bring faults in with Endgame.
Yeah. But I mean, like in that sense, the difficulty that Chernobyl, or like the scope or the heights to which it tried to climb, is not even in the same atmosphere. Like it's not even the same
Pretty
universe.
big, man. Like putting to
It's
screen.
a 5-episode thing about Chernobyl. It's not the same kind of levels, is what I'm saying.
I mean, you're talking about a comic book movie that's part of a series versus something that's trying to present a historical.
You're so focused you're so focused on the
achievement.
scale,
Yeah,
the
no, I know.
achievement.
But I mean,
which
for
is
me,
absolutely
it's a
fair. It's
different
amazing.
piece. It's
And
a different-
all of that hyperbole is what I threw at Infinity War because it's the exact
Yeah.
same production.
Yeah,
So
and for me,
I'm
that's
kind
like-
of I'm kind of over it. I've reconciled that.
Yeah.
Yes, they did an amazing miracle feat.
Like, yes, they had more money. Yes, they.
I thought
they
the first one was
had
better.
more
I don't
characters on screen. Yes, they did it extremely well. Like, yeah,
I don't even mean
I
in
agree
terms
with
of
you.
like the budget. I mean just in terms of what they were tasked with achieving. Like what
Yeah.
the outcome
I
for that
said
should
the
have been.
stack of cards was piling up,
Yeah.
and it could have
And I
all
mean-
fallen, and it didn't. And it's my numbers. It's my second.
Yeah, no, I was like,
It's
I'm
like
really
number 2.
arguing the difference between
not-
1 and 2.
And you know what?
Which
Last
is
year
fair.
you had Haunting of Hill House on your
I did.
list.
I
So,
did, yeah.
you know,
I'm the only one sticking to the rules
Yeah.
around here.
Only because we told you off for breaking the rules the one before that.
what happened in that one?
Well, one thing was that he put something in his number 1
Movie I
spot that he
hadn't
hadn't
seen.
even seen yet.
Oh yeah, that was the most hated movies though. But that we never said we had to say them.
Yeah, it's very
Wow.
I mean,
Fuck yeah, man. I love that.
Implied, but
Most hated movies.
yeah. Look, I know. I'm being super finicky over one. Like it's your list.
Marvel
You can-
shill.
You can put whatever you want. I just
Can I?
to me there's like
Oh, it
conceptually
sounds
my
like I
brain.
can't.
Yeah,
Revise your list right now.
Connor's like, Endgame
now.
1. No.
To me in my brain, like the idea that they achieved that, just I don't think that I can't give them enough praise for pulling it off.
Oh, I completely agree, man. I just can't tell you how much Chernobyl affected
yeah.
me and how.
I mean, that's far less egregious than just not putting in your top 5. But whatever.
Really don't love it, eh?
That's
I
fair
get
enough.
it, man. Like, to be honest, I was surprised I only saw Endgame 3 times, and I think there's something to be said there. I was kind of like, got it. I've got Endgame
Yeah.
now. Like Infinity War, I was hungry to go back.
I found like Infinity War has like 20 minutes maybe that I'm like, all right, let's get to the next bit. Endgame has almost half of it. I'm like,
Really?
yeah.
Half?
And I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying
Yeah,
like the
no,
first
that's-
time so engaging. Third time I'm like, I want to get to the next bit
Yeah.
very quickly.
That's
But
really
anyway, let's talk
interesting.
about Chernobyl because we have not talked about this at all yet.
Go,
Every
go, go.
episode's
Sorry.
different. It's so unique. The performances are amazing. Like
Jared Harris
Stellan
is so
and Jared Harris.
fucking
What an
great.
amazing duo. Great
Yes.
dichotomy between them, playing
Yes.
off each other perfectly.
And it starts out very clearly as like these two guys hate each other, they're never going to get along, but it just very quickly subverts that into this kind of mutual respect relationship that was so fun to watch.
And like, there's a lot of exposition in this. It like talks to you. It basically explains how a nuclear reactor works. You know?
Which I had no idea.
No.
And I felt so dumb like watching this being like, I don't know anything about Chernobyl or nuclear fission.
Well, I studied nuclear fission in high school. Like one of the topics in physics was nuclear power. So we learned all about that, and it was kind of like a little like what can potentially happen with exposition is you can get into really bogs down dialogue that's like, this is how XYZ works.
As we all know,
yeah.
and then launch into the
I mean, it's
explanation.
horrible.
Yeah.
It's horrible, isn't it? And this one, like, for some reason, the exposition kept my interest. And maybe it was because it was explaining how the nuclear reactor happens. But it didn't do it too early. It was only sort of episode 2 and 3 and onwards that the
Very
exposition was
engaging
coming in.
performers that made it so watchable.
It was just, I can't fault this, man. I can't fault it on any level. There's no episode, there's no part of it where it's like, oh, they could have trimmed that.
And it was one of the scariest things that I'm sure we've seen all year.
Some of the face makeup and the prosthetics in episode 3 is troubling.
Just the description of what radioactivity will do to a human body is so terrifying because it is so unexplored, really. Like, it's a real life thing, and like I said, I don't know anything about it, and it's horrific.
And Jared Harris, the way he describes the body decomposing, like it's like something out of a horror anime or something.
yeah,
It's
that's
really
a good comparison.
fucked up,
yeah.
man.
Do you know what I'm really terrified about now? Is that I'm going to, after all this, like, it's flawless, all this praise, I'm just going to watch this now looking for flaws.
Yeah.
I can just see it. No, I can see it in my head now. Because
This was George's number one.
Yeah,
I'd be so
Wow.
interested to see what you thought, man.
Yeah, and I think it's. I don't think I'll be able to see it for the next at least 3 months. Because if I see it in the next 3 months, that's all I'm going to think about.
I've not heard a bad thing about it. You know what I recommend, which I did not do, but what I've heard is you absolutely must, is to listen to the companion podcast for each episode.
There's a companion podcast.
Yeah,
From
the,
HBO.
The creators do a podcast
Oh,
for
fuck.
each episode.
Is it like a commentary or
I
a?
guess it's
It's a
essentially
discussion.
similar to a commentary, but just not over the episode. And apparently that is just very engaging.
I know what I'm listening to tomorrow. Fuck.
Do you have to watch it with the episodes?
I
Or do you
didn't.
watch
I
it
didn't
after?
listen. I didn't listen to it, but listen
Okay.
to it after. What I really liked about Chernobyl is the way that it. So at the end, not a spoiler, but it
Blows up.
It has like all kind of true things. It has like the shows photos and has little words under it about
yeah,
the
yeah,
real life stuff, and it acknowledges where it diverged from history.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated the way it explained that rather than just being like, "Nah, this all happened." Fuck you, Argo.
This is a true story.
I'll go fuck
This is
yourself.
how it happened.
You hear John Goodman said this is how it happened.
I feel like I should leave for not saying Argo, fuck yourself.
Just Argo, you're a fuckwit.
Yeah. Anyway, I cannot fault you putting Chernobyl in there. I didn't not put it in there because of the rules of it being movies. I didn't love it as much as you probably, but
Okay.
but I really am.
Let's say you could include it in your top 5. Would it have been in there?
Well, that's what I was.
That's
going
what he
by.
just said.
But yeah,
Okay.
like I it would be on my short list. Absolutely.
Okay, right.
Yeah, one of the
Cool.
best pieces of media I've consumed this year,
Yeah, just brilliant, man.
and a
I
nice
can't wait to
palate
watch it
cleanser
again.
after Game of Thrones.
Very nice, very nice.
Thank you, HBO.
Should we get into some honourable mentions?
Yes, got plenty. I'll jump right in. I've got one that I think you'll share. Georgie, I Am
My
Mother.
Mother. That's
Yep.
one of my picks as well.
Yes. Really cool.
That came out last week, didn't it?
Australian
Yeah.
Netflix film. Very fun little sort of non-franchise based sci-fi film. You put it so nicely on the weekly show, which that it was just kind of about ideas, which is so nice to see, so
Yeah.
refreshing.
I agree. And I liked how it kept flip-flopping, and I felt like on the trailer, I was like, I know where this is going. I know this film. I've seen it a million times, and I liked how it kept me guessing.
Big red eye. Okay, yeah.
And then the design of the robot, we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but the design of the robot was just brilliant.
Yeah, breathtaking. Because it was just like a guy in a suit, which is so hard to reconcile when you're watching the film.
When I saw the trailer, all I was thinking is like, did Netflix just get like a serious fucking budget? Like, I know that they're putting a lot of money into their
There's some good
original
CGI.
content, but like that's like movie level, like proper movie level quality. So yeah.
Yeah, and Mother's a very interesting character.
Yes, and well played by Rose Byrne. A lot of kind of nuance to it. It is like, it's not a spoiler to say it's a story about AI and its relationship with humanity, which we've seen countless times before, but one done just in an interesting way that we haven't exactly seen before.
Yeah, it's not like that Terminator. It's something different.
Yeah, that was a comparison I was often thinking about, Terminator, and I think this is such a much more interesting kind of way to take it. Yeah.
Yep, I completely agree.
I've got an honorable mention, and we were talking about movies that stick with you for whatever reason. And one that has stuck with me is Godzilla. I have thought about that movie.
I will join you on that
constantly.
Yeah,
I will not join you on that.
yeah. It's the only one who's watched it twice, I think.
Yeah. Which might have been your fatal flaw, because I have not stopped thinking about that film.
The second viewing was horrible.
I really wanted, and the opportunity did not come up. I wanted so badly to go watch this on a much bigger cinema than the first one I'd seen it in, because we saw it in a medium cinema, and
we were up top, and no,
I would have killed to see that in like an IMAX. Like that would be spectacular.
Yeah, honest to God, I kind of fucking love that movie.
Yeah.
It's pretty high up on my shortlist. I know
mental.
you don't like
It's
it.
growing me. I don't know what it is, and I don't know why it is, but that movie has kind of like, and this is the problem. I could not justify putting it in my top 5 because the part of my brain that's like, it's not a good movie. I can't shut up that part of my brain.
Yeah.
But the the dumb kid in my brain's just like, it was awesome.
Yeah. I considered it. Yeah. If you want to have an interesting kind of take on the movie, look up Movie Bob's review of it, because he's a great reviewer. He always brings a very interesting perspective to his reviews, and he gave that one 10 out of 10.
What?
Because he's a huge kaiju fan. He's like a huge long-serving fan of the series, and that brings up an interesting point, because we got a lot of feedback on our review from real Godzilla fans who chewed us the fuck out.
Blasted us.
Yeah, and we had a very moderate review on the movie.
We weren't particularly hard on it. I thought we did a very fair way.
So based on that, I feel like the kind of dyed-in-the-wool Godzilla fans enjoyed that, and I love that. It was so nice to see a fan base being well served by the franchise that they really admire.
Yeah. I what I really got out of Godzilla was I really need to explore some more old Godzilla.
Yeah.
And like all the reaction that we got and all the comments, I was like, wow, I really didn't know. It was not on my radar how diehard this fan base is. And I've got to go and investigate this.
Have you watched old Godzilla films though?
I don't think I've seen. I think I've seen the first one, and that's it.
Yeah, I haven't watched it in a long
Like
time. I think I watched
ago.
the American version
Years
as well,
and years
which
ago.
is
Yeah,
not
I
worth it.
like when I was a kid, like so 10 years old. I went through with my family. I went through like a Godzilla phase.
Nice.
So I watched a couple of old black and whites and like some.
It's an acquired taste.
Exactly,
No
and that's
doubt.
what I mean. Like, don't go back to the originals, because I mean, if you are a kaiju fan, I think you have to make a conscious decision to like Godzilla. Like you're either like, I like Godzilla now.
I think
and
the
I'm
first
going to
one-
enjoy everything.
I think the first one stands alone as a great classic film. The series is very...
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't know, if you were a Power Rangers fan growing up, you're probably much in a better position to...
And I think it's
And it's-
wildly inconsistent. I think some are
It's
great and
hugely
some are
inconsistent.
terrible.
Definitely.
Because I remember being very confused. When I was like 10 or whenever I was watching these films, because it would go from like a pretty cool one that seemed to have like a decent budget to like the next one, Godzilla would very much look like he looked like, just someone had put a lazy costume on for Halloween and wandered onto a film set, and you're like, wait, what? So I mean, I think it's cool to go back and check it out, but just as a word of caution, like you won't go back and be like, these are masterpieces. Like I get what everyone's talking about now. I think you make a conscious decision to be like, I'm going to enjoy kaiju films, and then you let yourself take away. Like I think that there's no better example than Del Toro's one, Pacific Rim. Like that's a movie that you either decide to like or you don't. And there's plenty of things to pick at that movie in terms of hating it. But if you feel like you want to enjoy that film, God damn it, is it an enjoyable film?
Yeah, as a Mighty Morphin fiend, just the miniatures and stuff, I'll just froth off that.
Yeah.
So.
Anyways, that was
And
that was our review of Godzilla.
The best thing Godzilla did was in the wake of it, we both watched Shin Godzilla,
Oh,
which
that was
very
way better.
very
way,
good
way better.
time.
And every Godzilla
Very
fan,
different, very different. I feel like they offered different things.
They definitely did.
And I honestly feel like they both executed them quite well. I'm glad you brought that up, Connor, because it wasn't actually on my short list, but it is a movie that I could not stop thinking about for a while. I really wanted to see
how they
again.
did that. I don't know how they got into my brain. It's very weird.
Yeah.
Couple honorable mentions for me. Broly, the Dragon Ball Z movie.
Hey,
I got a kick
forgot
out of
about
that.
Yeah,
That was cool, man.
Good fun.
Like it was
contextually, as a very long time childhood Dragon Ball Z fan,
Yes.
it's the only way you could ever possibly
100%.
enjoy it.
Yeah. But the fighting and the visual style was very, very different in this, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. And I liked the exploration of seeing Planet Vegeta and the Saiyan race, and man, it kind of got me on a little bit of a Dragon Ball Super kick. And
Yes, you still watching that?
no,
You did well for you.
yeah,
I thoroughly enjoyed that film. I'm very old school. Dragon Ball Z was such a huge part of my life. I will never prefer something like this to the original Broly movie. And I mean the original English dub with like
the metal, the Deftones,
yeah, like Deftones and shit. That is my jam.
Baby.
But yeah, it was
Changing the House of Flies.
very-
like, holy
yes.
fuck, man.
that was cooler. But very, very well executed. I love what they've been doing with the new movies.
Yeah.
They're very well thought out.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And another
any
honorable
other-
mention,
Oh, sorry,
Happy
go ahead.
Death Day to You. I
Fun.
really, really dug that film.
Very
Like,
fun. Very cool sequel.
Yeah, man. Like, it didn't make my top 5, but really enjoyed that. I loved the first one, and it's a cool little series. And I liked how it was more of a sci-fi mystery as
Yes.
opposed to a horror.
Yeah.
Cool.
Very nice direction to take it. I just want to run through a couple because I got a few that you definitely haven't seen. The Perfection, the Netflix film that I brought up a little while
the
ago.
violin cello one.
Have you watched that? Anyone watched that?
No, I haven't.
The cellist one.
Yes,
Yeah.
that like I said in my initial kind of mention of it, it just keeps changing what kind of film it is every 20 minutes. Really keeps you guessing. So engaging, very fun, very disturbed. Destroyer, starring Nicole Kidman. That was a
You're not
really
around.
She
or
pixeled
you've
out
got
in that?
You've got a blind spot. For
Yeah, well, she doesn't look anything like Nicole Kidman in it, so I was fooled. That's from the director, Karen Kusama, I think her name is, of The Invitation, one of my absolute favorite movies of the last few years. So I was a little too hyped up going into it. Didn't blow me away, but one of those ones that stuck with me in a very nice way. Toy Story 4, Georgie, I really have to give a mention to because, I'm sorry, because
no, good on you.
the movie itself was a little flat to me. It definitely didn't blow me away. I honestly thought I was going to be the least enthusiastic about it coming out of it. Our review really changed that thought. But
I think you and me were probably on similar.
Pretty similar, yeah.
well,
Yeah.
now I think I'm a little higher because what it did thematically and what I've read about it since and what I've thought about it since, I'm so impressed with. Not necessarily the execution of the entire movie itself. Any little quibbles I may have mentioned in the review, check it out, still stand. But I've really wanted to see it again because I really want to clarify my feelings towards that film because I feel like, and this is entirely based on the ending essentially, but I just love what they did for a movie that we all thought was so unnecessary. I really enjoyed some of it.
I think the concepts in it are great.
Yeah.
I just didn't quite get the execution, but maybe I've got to see it again.
What have you read that's flipped your mind? Yeah. Me and Ben will talk about Toy Story.
Georgie's out, baby.
You go do your thing.
Just the as we said in our review, it's not Toy Story 4. It's Toy
Its own
Story
little thing,
universe,
yeah.
Woody. And
Which is the exact kind of thing that I would really hate for Pixar to do, particularly with a property like that.
yes, and I understand how George going in would be very upset by the fact that it is not a Toy Story ensemble film. Like all of your favorite characters that you've grown up with get one or two lines, and I can see how that would be frustrating. But I really kind of respect that they were like, yes, this is Toy Story 4, and we're not gonna pander. Like I really feel like
But I
they
don't know
don't
that
went
it's
too far down the
necessarily
nostalgia route.
Pandering, because I think that Disney was trying to have its cake and eat it too. And the reason I think about it, because I was, coming here today and I looked up at the marketing, and it's, it's Woody, it's Bo Peep, and it's Buzz, and I thought, what a fucking shit thing to put on a poster, because Buzz is not in this film. Like that was the thing that really angered me. Like if you're if you're making a Woody and Bo Peep thing, cool. But I think that they on a number of levels tried to have their cake and eat it too. Like they try to do that with marketing. I think the ending, which I don't want to spoil for people, but I think the ending tried to play off a relationship that hadn't been given its due.
Not in
for
that
the
film,
movie.
but I feel like there was enough pre-existing material, and this is the fourth film in a series. You have to take it as a film in a series, and I feel like there's enough there to. I really kind of respected what they'd done. Where, and again, I'm trying to dodge spoilers here, but the Woody character was acknowledging that he was in a very different phase of his life, and the things that once were so important to him weren't necessarily the things that were.
Absolutely
but I'm
love
talking
that.
specifically about what you're talking about. The things that were important to him weren't that anymore. So it was very heartfelt, but kind of bittersweet. You know, I don't know. I just really respect the road they went down with that shit.
Yeah. I think there was a different way to convey that.
Yeah, and like I said, I got to say it again because I don't know. I'm impressed with some of the stuff they did. Okay, here's a left field one that I just had to throw in because it really stuck with me. I went and watched a double of The Death of Superman and Reign of the Supermen animated film from DC this year. The latter was, of course, released this year, the former last year. But it was the most enjoyable experience I've had with like a Justice League kind of thing in a cinema. I guess there's only two options there, but it really... It was so much fun, and Rainn Wilson as Lex Luthor from The Office was so sassy and so amazing, and it just really hammered home to me how much fun a Justice League movie should be. Yeah. So it was kind of a crushing experience, but fun at the same time.
I'll give the rest of my honor. Do you have any more?
Yes, but I'll wait for you.
No. Oh, okay. All right. I'll go. I'll give the rest of mine. For the things that it did right, Alita: Battle Angel, I think deserves a quick shout out.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Really cool to see. Like
There's too much I hate about that movie to give it any actual proper kind of call out, but the stuff it did right, absolutely.
That's why I gave the caveat for the stuff that it did right.
Yeah.
Cool film. I also, you guys will very much not be on this vein, but Triple Frontier, I really enjoyed.
I had a feeling you'd bring that up tonight, and we haven't seen it, so
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So shut up. No, it's. I doubt that either of you would really get a huge kick out of this. It certainly wouldn't make either of your short lists. But for what seemed like such a stock standard kind of cookie cutter action military film, I thought that this movie did enough with the genre or the style of film to make it interesting and a little bit more nuanced. And it definitely delved into enough of the kind of cool mindset, or not the cool mindset, but the kind of the disturbed mindset of certain people that I think it is well worth a checkout. I mean, I know I've just said that you won't enjoy it, but I'm kind of curious to see how much you won't enjoy it. I know that sounds like awfully sadistic.
I think I would enjoy it.
I'll take that challenge.
I would love to see. I honestly want to hear your opinions on it.
I think it looks solid. I think I would like it.
I think it looks kind of
I mean,
cool.
I just know that you don't like war films or kind of like.
It's not a war film, though, is it?
No, it's not really.
But, guns and shooting.
Yeah.
Any more on mentions, George?
I had Shazam.
Shazam, nice.
Yeah.
I'm happy to hear that because you were pretty down on the movie when we first...
Was I?
Well, more so than us, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't quite as amped as you guys.
You had a really bad viewing experience, certainly.
Yeah. And you also hate Mark Strong.
Mark Strong, man. He's just coming at me all the time. He turns up every 2 years and I'm like...
This guy's in everything.
Wait, sorry. Your main criticism of is that he's oversaturated, and you've just said that he only pops up once every 2 years.
Oh,
you can't have it.
It's too much. It's too much.
I can't handle
the
it,
man's
man.
taking over.
I can't handle it.
Poor Mark Strong is like, what can I do to please you, George?
I've got one more to mention quickly, which was the Lego Movie 2, which I'm in the very, very small minority of being someone who liked that more than the first one. And I am, again, in probably a smaller minority of loving all 4 Lego movies. This movie, it just really impressed me with its sophistication in the themes that it was dealing with. Just the road it went down in regards to the relationship between men and women, and in a broader context, the way that culture deals with that was so on point for me, and I was just I loved it. Also the soundtrack.
Yeah.
This one being a musical, the first one not. I have listened to endlessly. Catchy Song is my fucking jam.
I was humming that for ages afterwards.
I was listening to it on the way here.
I was thinking about this film, and this film I was kind of put right in the middle, so I couldn't really give it an honorable mention for good or bad. And what it did well, I thought I laughed so hard during this film.
Yes, very funny.
Oh my God, I thought this film was so funny. But the thing that I think you loved about it is something I kind of hated about it. I thought that their kind of social commentary in this film was so on the nose. Like,
but you think every social commentary is like
No,
is a
no,
product of
I really-
executives thinking what's popular and
I'm gonna let you finish, but I honestly think it is more nuanced than maybe you're giving it credit for.
It probably is. For this one, I don't know what it was about it that really kind of that triggered me. But yeah, I found it too preachy. And it wasn't like preachy in the sense that it's on the nose, like telling me what I need to think, but like it just, I don't know what it was. It just like screamed this social message. And what I really loved about the first one is that it was this beautifully made story about keeping your innocence. It's something that we all kind of know. Like, it basically gave the same lesson, but I felt in a far more universal and less kind of like socially constructed way.
I guess
whereas this one was like
different
targeting specific issues that you find in the zeitgeist
That's
of
our
today's.
different things. Yeah, like
Yeah,
I
and I
love
hate
the
that.
way they narrowed down on something that I think a lot
that-
about.
for me, the first one talked to a universal truth. The second one talked to a political point, and I hate that.
Well, so to agree slightly, I love that I love experiencing them as two different movies. I love the first one did that. I love that the second one didn't try to do that again. It did something different. I think it's one of the best sequels I've ever seen. Enjoyed it thoroughly.
yeah.
yeah, that was just completely erased from my memory.
Yeah.
All I remember is the song in the middle from the main bad guy. That was awesome.
Yes.
That was a killer track.
Yes. Not evil.
Tiffany
Not evil.
Haddish.
So good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she was spectacular.
So
I love
good.
Tiffany Haddish. I think she's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
It's all done for honorable mentions, folks.
That's it.
That's pretty much it.
Well,
We've just
that-
named half the
That's every movie we've reviewed this year.
Yeah.
Except for 5 that we're about to mention in the next episode.
and the honorable mentions for the bad ones.
We've
as well,
actually
yeah.
pumped out 46 episodes this year and 21 reviews. I can't remember right now because I don't know if I counted Captain Marvel spoilers and non-spoilers
Oh, no.
as 2 or 1.
20
Regardless.
reviews. That can't be right.
20 reviews, man.
We're a lot more prolific than we were last year. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Killing
So, guys, thank you so much for listening in, and let us know, where are you sitting with your top 5 right now? Did you agree with our choices? Did you disagree?
Divisive year.
Let us know if we're completely wrong, if we missed anything. We're really eager to keep this conversation going, so hit us up in the comments on YouTube or any of the social media, including Facebook and Instagram. And don't forget to go check out our worst of the year, which is up right now. We're going to slam some shit.
Yeah.
Because
my
we're going to
favorite
get slammed.
It's my favorite part because we're already half our beers down.
Yeah. And I think
And it inevitably gets
no.
more
Getting-
vicious and angry, and
100%.
it's my wheelhouse.
All right. We'll see you on the second half, Connor.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere, but bye.
see,
To those that are finished listening,
see you in the
goodbye.
nether regions, Benny.
Bye, everybody. See you in 2 minutes.